Welcome everybody to today's SUSE QE Tools workshop. I will share my screen on, and then I hope you will not be confused that I'm sharing my video in one screen. And here you should be able to see my shared browser view. So today, as every beginning of the month, we want to talk about the roadmap. And for that, that includes recent achievements. So I want to shortly mention of what the teams has achieved in the past months. And then we can present the midterm plan and future outlook. And of course, it shouldn't just be a presentation, but you're invited to ask, to interact, to make proposals, and to tell about ideas which you would like to see to be worked on, as well as what would be more important to me to tell us, like stuff that is actually not important to work on. So that would free our capacity to what to work on instead. So for the recent achievements, I'm using a ticket query, which everybody of you can also follow if you like. So we have, oops, sorry about that. In the section how we work, there are, by now there are 5 queries. The first one is the complete backlog. I will use that later on. I'm using the last one now, which is stating here closed within the last 60 days. This is assuming that, we don't have the possibility to always talk about that every month. But in that case, because there was a roadmap last week, I think Chris, you and Bill, you could present that. So, I'm just taking a look at the last 30 days. Over the last 30 days, in total, we have 68 tickets. So this meets our velocity expectation that roughly per calendar day, we have 2 tickets closed. And we have categories. So we have tickets without category, which is the biggest, which can be mainly when it's in a dedicated ticket project. We can take a look if we expand there, what they are. There's 1 bugs in existing tests because it's just one. I will just mention that afterwards because it's also important. Then we have 13 bugs that we worked on. When we say concrete bugs, then we use that for regressions mostly or only. That means that if there's unexpected behavior but it was never changing, then we see that as a feature request. There are enhancement to existing tests meaning actual OpenQA tests, which is normally not within our domain. 12 feature requests, so you can see that this number more or less compares to the number of bugs. 1 which is just dedicated to the infrastructure, but there are also infrastructure tasks in blank, and then 2 organizational. Now, which category would you like to see first? Any preferences?
Maybe if you have some kind of like highlights.
Highlights?
I would maybe not focus on particular group, but like from the most impactful thing, and
right.
Then we have also fixed some annoying issues, whatever. But that could be mentioned later. I mean,
yeah.
I'm really curious about future vision, how we are going there, and what were the considerable achievements in meanwhile.
Good, thank you. First, let's start what you suggested as most impactful changes. So, for example, what we did, or what I did, is we had a problem that suddenly there was an RMT server showing up in the SUSE network, which was disrupting most automated tests that rely on SAC access to get access to the modules and to check that, from customer point of view, how packages can be accessed in the different SLE modules. What was done there is that, well, I provided a small change in the tests, and that helped to get most tests going again. So this is actually quite impactful. Let me take a look. in infrastructure that is also has had a higher impact is that there was an older S390 mainframe, which is obsoleted by a newer setup, but with that also the S-word worker class was deprecated and then obsoleted, but there were some old tests that are still, running on the ZKVM machine, and then they couldn't find a worker. And then the third bigger impact thing, which I would like to mention, is that there was a bigger disruption in how needle matching is done. So the algorithm changed and made OpenQA more strictly looking at the screen. And
Oliver,
yeah.
sorry for the interruption. In those kind of changes, I would like to, for the future, to ask to not to merge them late in the week. So ideally,
yeah, we collected
Monday or
some
something.
ideas. What you mentioned had also been mentioned in there. So what I just want to highlight here is that we did conduct a lesson learned about that. So we wanted to improve. In general, what we have is we have an automated deployment, and we want to make sure that all the changes that we deploy don't cause unexpected disruptions regardless of the time of the week. And also it could be, we also had that in the past, that there were changes, that were deployed early in the week, but then issues only showed up over the next week, and so there it also wouldn't help. What I want to stress here, that's the most important point, is that this again was a reminder for us to say we actually don't want to have any disruptive changes. So if we want to introduce a change like that, this was an external contribution and it was open for some months, and I would say it was mainly my fault to deploy it in the way of how we did it. We could have done better by introducing a feature switch and then going more step by step. So this is what we have learned from that and changed. Now let me just check bugs in existing tests. Okay, it's not that important. Now, what I want to show is then, let's start with this group, that actually within the last month we had quite a lot of, you can see all this red, quite a lot of unexpected problems that we needed to react on. So there was this rogue ACC server issue, which was impacting us. Then there was multiple problems related to network, and the most recent one within SUSE R&D network is still going on, impacting at least the ARM workers. 2 days ago was also more. And actually, if we take a look for ARM, we can see that referenced in multiple tickets. Yeah, so that is bugging us, and that is problematic, because as we just mentioned before the meeting, there are some components where we do consider ARM critical. So this is why we need to ensure that at least some ARM resources are online. And this is why we want to react on that with urgency. You can also see that there are some other tasks. For example, the OpenK bot could not connect to Smelt, so there was also related to a network problem within that domain. And then there's also this proof of concept of the QAM dashboard, which I say proof of concept, but still we want to ensure that whatever is up is still running and up. So this is why we take that serious. There's also a second one, which is of a similar kind, also showing these symptoms. And then what is also sometimes recurring is alerts due to limited storage. You can imagine that OpenQA stores a lot of data every single day. There are many, many jobs executed, and all of these store data, be it results or assets. And then we need to ensure that, well, there is the internal cleanup, which is happening, but of course we don't want to, well, we want to keep important results. So that's why we handle alerts with diligence. Right. What else? Now let's come to some changes, some features. So there is we have OpenQA Review, and OpenQA Review is putting these reminder comments on bugs. And sometimes there were reminder comments in products which were considered obsolete already, or actually end of life. That is, within SUSE QA product validation, we had that concept of saying whenever a product is released, we move it into the released job group. But for maintenance, there was no such concept. But of course, released is not a good target for a product, because of course all of these products are released. So effectively, what I did there is create a new job group on OpenQA SUSE, which is called EOL, for short for end of life. And then products which don't receive any new tests because they are not tested anymore, because they are not supported anymore, they can be moved into that job group, and then there will not be reminder comments related to these tests anymore. What else? There are two hosts which we now consider part of our critical infrastructure. One is storage QA SUSE, another one is backup QA SUSE. And both of these hosts, they do provide some storage, one for an archiving feature, which we support now in OpenQA, and another one being, well, a backup. And I will come to that later when relating that to the Saga. The idea for the storage host is that we have an archive for job, and basically we can keep more jobs around without running out of space, and also without decreasing the performance of more recent current test results. So, and now I want to go over the two sections of bugs and feature requests and mention important things in there. So let me see. There are some references of, let's say, internal tests, like the OpenQA self-tests or unit tests for OpenQA, like this one, and also for the backend OS auth-inst. And we take failures there seriously to make sure that we only release something to production when we ensure that these tests really provide reliable results. And now in the feature request block, so what we did is, there can be cases where QEMU gets terminated because the host is running out of memory, and in some cases that wasn't clear to the users, even though the message is there, but there's a big lock and you don't immediately see that. So what we applied as changes is basically two changes. One is that for special cases, we made it more apparent already in the info box. There's a reason field for OpenQA on top. Now that one will tell you if the QEMU instance was running out of memory. A second change that we did is that we reworked the log levels in the way of how we highlight entries. So now, really, if there's an error coming from QEMU, like you used the wrong perimeter or some component cannot be reached, which is most likely also due to configuration issues, then it will show with the according log level. It will use the warning log level. It will use exclamation marks. It will show up in, I think it's in red or orange. Okay. Another thing is there was recently a problem that Chemo 6.0, which was just showing up in OpenSUSE Factory and Tumbleweed, failed to start jobs. And well, that is because some older set of parameters were not working in before, and we needed to adapt how the backend parses parameters to Chemo. In that case of using a special mode called NUMA, where you can control the number of nodes. And we now do the explicit splitting of the assigned memory to all of the nodes, because Chemo demands these settings to be explicitly stated. That is for Chemo 6.0, so we have not immediately seen that in production, because our production instances and also our main test target is OpenSUSE Leap 15.2 with still Chemo 4.2. But for users that are running Tumbleweed, that had been seen immediately. And I think also our test in OBS our test in OBS did not show that, because we are not running that special mode in the Tumbleweed test explicitly. Right. Two important features which I want to, no, actually there are three important features which I want to highlight. Okay, I see, it's four. The first one is OpenQA review reports. The OpenQA review reports can generate reports, or you can call them on your own. And we also provide now a new mode which should be a little less verbose and be a bit more aligned for the people that are looking just for the failures. So I have one example pointed out here, which is an older report, but as soon as the network problems are resolved, I hope that we will have automated generated reports for every day. And what you see here is that it only shows the report sections where there are actual problems. So, it's not giving a complete overview for the parts which are all green, all passed. It's only showing the relevant tests. As an outlook, the next thing that we want to do in this direction is that we also want to have a mode where only the to-do review entries are left, like only that one, because this doesn't yet have any ticket. So it would not show this one, would not show this one, not these, because they have a ticket reference, so they don't immediately need that. But only the test failures which need review, like also here and these two. Okay. The next feature is that we can resolve the most recent builds per job group on tests overview when showing multiple job groups. And I want to show you directly one example of where can that be useful. So I assume all of you know the test overview page of OpenQA. And what is now possible is that you can combine job groups. Here I have one example, which is freely accessible, which is the incident tests on OpenQA OpenSUSE.org. And of course, the same works on other instances of OpenQA, where you can have multiple job groups. So in this case, the incident tests for Leap 15.3 and 15.2 within the same page. And there you see there's this one block for 15.2 and there's the one block for 15.3. So, for example, if you on a daily basis, you review test results and you needed to open the most recent test results from multiple job groups one by one in individual tabs. Now what you can do is you can show them on a single page. And what is something which people maybe only realize indirectly is that mostly with the great contributions from Tina Müller, is that multiple pages could be optimized a lot so that they are much faster. This is like the group overview pages as well as the test overview pages. And there are two reasons why we came to the idea that maybe these pages could be optimized. One reason was the feature which I showed you before, because we were working in the domain of the test overview page, showing multiple job groups on the page. So it made sense to make sure that this also works with good performance. And the second reason is that we had a problem that OpenSUSE.org was inaccessible to most users. Suddenly it was not reacting anymore because it was just hammered with requests to certain pages. So we now have the task on our backlog to do first to prevent this from happening, like with rate limiting, maybe preventing certain unusual requests or detecting malicious attacks. And on the other hand, also optimize the pages so that the actual impact is really lower. Rita?
I have a question here. I have seen this feature before, but how can I enable it? Is there a filter option, or is there...
Good that you asked that. Right.
Yeah.
So currently, this is only enabled, let's say, for the advanced users. When you know the group ID, then you can put them into the address bar. But what we are currently working on right now, and if you like, I can show you a preview, because we have an open pull request for that. And the pull request has a screenshot. So we will have a link which you can click, and that one will directly go to the corresponding test overview. So you recognize this is the normal index page showing a parent job group with this folded build, which has multiple job groups below, like, functional, YAST, kernel, network, and such. And this box is new. This is a link which will point you to a test results review of the latest result within the complete parent job group. So, if you click that link, then you would come to the test overview page showing all individual job groups. And there's also another feature request in the plan to make more available in the filter box, because we realized that the filter box of the test overview page is providing some details, but it could provide other filter options that are also useful, especially for the use case of reviewing SUSE maintenance test results. Marita, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Cool. So, more questions about this feature or feedback? Nope. Then I can mention two more things. One is that the investigation info. So if there's any test that is failing, then then there is a tab on the details page. It's actually also an API route which you can access, which shows you important information for investigation, like what is the difference to the last good and such. There was also a change that if you happen to come to a job which is in a scenario that had been failing already for longer, then maybe the diff is becoming very big, because you're comparing like the failure of today against the last good, which was like 2 months ago. So the difference can grow larger and larger. But what is most often important is the difference of the first batch, like the point where it switched from being good to the first test that failed afterwards. And if you show the investigation tab for any failed job, which is not the first bed, then you will see a highlighted box with a link, and you can click on that to go to the first bed and then show the investigation info for that first bed against the last good. And then the diff is smaller, which should make investigation easier. Anton?
What do you think about making this feature more generic? Because it's not always that like you need to investigate some certain job, sorry, other way around. You sometimes know better what jobs need to be compared. So maybe we should just provide a flow where you can say compare this job with this job.
Okay.
By giving maybe just for the beginning, just like in URL, you type two IDs and then you get into some page, something like this. I don't know.
You mean like you want to compare the current job against a specific other job, but not the last?
I would like to have interface where I just put two IDs.
Yeah,
which I know,
good idea.
And,
okay.
Yeah.
I'll note it down.
Currently, I have some Python script which is doing something like this, but yeah, it would be more useful if it would be in UI.
Cool. Yeah, if you already have a script, you can create a feature request and reference the Python script, and then we could get the idea of like what you achieve with that, and think about what of that is transferable.
Okay, I can do it.
And now the last thing, the last feature which I wanted to present is that we have now a log viewer in Web UI with color parsing. So if you see any job, then let me just look up a failed one in OpenSUSE.org. And here's the investigation tab, which I mentioned in before. So loading the investigation info for the current info, sorry, for the current job, and you can go to the first bad test directly. This is the feature which I mentioned before. And now on logs and assets, what you can see is that a bit more icons. So you probably know that we have had a video viewer already for longer, and you can download the video. So you have these two options, and now you also have two options for log files. And you can download the file, which is basically what we had in before. And when you click here, what you see is a log viewer, and that log viewer is embedded, so you can go back to the job, but also you see a bit more colorful output. So this is in gray because this is only debug, and then there's a message here in red, and there's a message here in orange. Actually, I realized that this shouldn't be red. There's something to be worked on. And there are also these blue lines which separate the individual modules. So for example, if you walk over the log and you want to see where does it switch over from one test module to another, then you see these blue lines. So yeah, so much about what we had done so far. Any more questions about things that had been done in the past? Then let me go to the top level view of the backlog. So the top level view shows that we have 4 sagas that we currently worked on. Previously, some months ago, we had focused on the lower 3 sagas, but we shifted a bit the effort to stress the requests for the SUSE maintenance QA workflows. The goal for that saga, so think about a time scope of within the time scope of 1 year. What we want to support is SUSE maintenance QA workflows with fully automated testing, approval, and release. So I assume that most of you are aware of where we want to go within the SUSE maintenance test, and this Saga is there to support this idea. But also the other Sagas are related to that. For example, there's the detection of known failures for stable results, easy test result, and easy tracking of known issues. So this detection of known failures or easy tracking of known issues is important, and I see that closely related to, some of you know the idea of a bot being able to automatically approve maintenance release requests, which works already in case tests are all passed. But in case if there's any failure, then that is aborted, which is good conservative approach. But of course, if it happens too often, then effectively the auto approval doesn't help. So this is one part of that Saga where we say we want to make sure that known failures, like we have seen that issue before, and it doesn't make sense if we repeatedly need to look over it again, are able to be tracked with less effort, or at best no effort for known issues. And the two Sagas here, so scale out, this is about redundant load balancing deployments of OpenQA related to containers, as well as on containers on Kubernetes, both for production environments as well as personal user instances. So it's the broad range of keeping OpenQA supported from the single user mini instances that, at best you can just install with a single command and it works, up to the point where we say we have a bigger infrastructure with more than 10 hosts, and tests are scheduled so that they run in that pool of cluster. They're always selecting resources which are available. Which, of course, you should know that it already works in most cases, but there are cases where we either need to migrate to newer technology like Kubernetes in some cases, or if that really provides us benefits like better scaling, as well as easier maintenance, as well as easier setup for new users. And the Saga 64746 is about scaling up. The goal there is to enable efficient handling of large storage to be able to run current tests efficiently, like the test run from today, and you're able to review the test results from today, but also keep bigger archives of older results. So something like a test failure that is linked to a bug report, and that bug report has longer investigation work or development that runs over months or maybe even years, and we can still preserve these results. With this Saga, we have the expectation that we would be able to finish that as the next one from our backlog. What we need to do there is that after we have now included the 2 additional hosts, storage QA and backup QA, into our production OpenQA SUSE setup, now that we can rely on that and we have full monitoring for that, now we can enable the archiving feature within OpenQA SUSE, which is a feature which we have developed some weeks ago. And we have gained experience with that before enabling that in production. And now we can enable that in production and then allow to store even more results. Maybe we can also extend the time ranges for some job groups so that test results are kept around longer, and you would run less into the situations where you're hitting job URLs and the job was unfortunately already removed and deleted. Are there, yeah, Anton?
Is there any documentation about how this feature is working and how I can use it?
Yeah, the good thing is that it should just work automatically for the users and be very transparent. Maybe the only thing how you would realize that a job is stored somewhere else is that there would be a small text on top which says this job is archived. And therefore, maybe you can expect a bit, let's say, longer loading times, okay? So think about the following situation. You have fast and expensive storage based on flash storage. There you want to store the most recent, the current test results, like the build from today and yesterday. And then there are some jobs which people rarely access. So, you try to access them from this archive, which is maybe cheaper rotating disk storage, but you can extend that storage more easily. Like, you need to catch something from the attic once in a year.
So this feature will be transparent for the user. It will be used in all jobs which you previously was deleting. Now you will archive them all.
Exactly. So for the instance administrators, that means they can enable that feature by providing configuration, simple configuration in the main etc OpenKInit file. Okay, so you say, yes, I want archiving, and you give it a path, like you mount the external storage over network to your central instance, or the second disk on the same instance. For the job group administrators, of course, they always need to know like what kind of storage is available, how much, and therefore they can tweak the settings accordingly for the important results, because now the important results are the ones that are kept around longer in the archive. And for the users, it's transparent with just that small notice on top of job details, which could tell you like maybe it takes a bit longer to display all screenshots because it's an archive job. Okay. So more comments or feedback regarding the storage feature? One explanation, why do we do that? Well, people have requested that over years, let's say vaguely, mainly the main request which everyone has implicitly, or which many have implicitly, is to say, I don't want my test results to be deleted, or they're surprised if something goes away that fast. And to be able to scale up and also to be able to support more products, which is, always happening. There are more versions, more products, more flavors, more tests, which you guys and users enable. We are always running into a limit, and this is why we bought that storage machine for the OpenK SUSE infrastructure, and we implemented a feature to be able to use that from OpenK perspective. Yeah, so are there more questions around the Sagas on that level? Why we do that? Should we do that? Which one we should focus on? Which one we should not focus on? Okay, I will continue with a bit more detailed look. If you come up with more ideas or questions, then please raise them up. So we can go into the individual sagas, or what we can do is we can go into the complete backlog. And I want to, same as for the result tickets, again, I would like to give you an overview of how is it currently structured and what categories do we have there, what priorities what's the status, what can be the expectation. We have 96 tickets in our backlog. Anton?
Yeah, I just it came to my mind. I have no idea what is QRM dashboard. You were mentioning it.
Okay. Well, I can show you, and then you get a glimpse of how it can look like. So basically, this is the dashboard. It shows it's very much centered around incidents. Okay, so release requests. The idea is that on a single centric place, from a test reviewer perspective, you would see what are the current incidents, and there are also views like blocked by tests. So here you can see that this incident, what is it blocked by, and then you get the test, the OpenKA test feedback. So you see that all this is good, but this block is red, meaning that we can click on this, you can follow the test summary, and you see like, okay, there's one test failing, that's blocking the incident, so it's not being automatically approved because at least of this one, which is there. And in other cases, we see that there are tests unfinished, so we can't say yet. This is why there's this shade of blue here. And yeah, it's just a different aggregated view to what the current status is from a different kind of perspective.
Can you point to GitHub project?
There is no GitHub project right now. It's a proof of concept that is internal in GitLab SUSE.
Okay, to GitLab, I don't care. To GitLab project, it looked like something that with a little bit tune-up can be used.
Say again?
It looked like something which is with little bit tune-up can be used not only for incidents, but to, let's say, ease daily work of test reviewers.
Right, it could be. Different test reviewers and different teams have different expectations and different needs. For example, some really want to take a look at complete groups of tests like multi-machine clusters. I think this is also more important for you. In some other cases, people want to take a look at individual modules, and then it's not that helpful. And this is why we felt that this might help, but it might only help some people, and some other people want something different. And this is why we want to accommodate something for everybody.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and now we can also see how that is reflected in the backlog. So we have 96 tickets, and what we currently work on. So, for example, the thing which did it move to feedback already? Maybe, maybe Ivan already put that in feedback. Yeah. So this is that we have that link to the test overview pages for parent job groups with test results from multiple job groups. This is this ticket. This is what we work on. And then there are also other tickets, like to distinguish comment types on jobs on tests, so that there's also the /tests route. It can be, again, there are some test reviewers which like to use that as a central place to have an overview. Some others use test overview page, some others use the dashboard, and some others want to have a separate tool. So this is what we also work on, is that we want to distinguish the comment types of jobs on the test page. There's also an endeavor called shift left, and here the current task is that we move all tests which have MR in the name. You might have seen build MR : and these are on submission tests. So before release requests are created, test results can already be provided based on testing, and that should be done in a separate job group, starting small with a single test scenario, and then experience with that is gained. So this is collaboration with maintenance. Yeah, there's also some work, for example, related to smelt, and yeah, so much about in progress. So now the next thing which we consider workable is, so these two are concrete bugs that we see some errors in OpenQA GRU service log. So some jobs are unable to download certain assets, and it seems that either retriggering helps, or these are actually cases where a feature is not working correctly, but only in the case if the jobs fail. So the impact is a bit limited there. There had been cases by this was especially apparent in the kernel team's tests, that individual step results of jobs can be skipped. That seems to be specific to the certain test layout, so a bit limited of when could also be related to dynamically changing the order of test modules in the test, which some tests are doing, many are not. So this is where we are investigating where the problem comes from. Yeah, then we have sometimes we have alerts which we need to handle, but also we had a case where we did not have alerts and we needed to rely on users telling us where the problem is. Same as for the number of scheduled tests, where the test schedule can get very long, and then you're asking like, hey, what's going on? Tests are not executed for some days in certain cases, and we're investigating what the problem is, and also trying to monitor such cases and find that earlier. There we have the task to make use of the storage server to have an OSD backup, and we can store the archived jobs in a different folder structure. Then this is that we want to extend the test page to list all unreviewed failures, so that you would also have this to-do view on tests, which is independent of job groups, so that if you were looking for certain test scenario or certain module and you care if it fails, and you care, do I need to put a label there for review, and you can find it over this page, also related to the maintenance QA review story. Also this one, where the idea, this was coming from Witt and from me, can we change the existing job group structure for maintenance tests, which is like you have incidents, and then within incidents you have a subgroup per version. Can we turn that around and make it the same as in product validation on OpenQA SUSE, where you would say you have not a version as job group, but something like a squad as job group. Okay, so that would also ease review. And also, for example, this one I want to mention is that, yeah, we always need to ensure that we are running supported versions of all the components. We upgraded a production environment to Leap 15.2 already many months ago. You know, 15.3 is already released. But what we haven't done yet is that we also upgrade the PostgreSQL database version to at least the default of Leap 15.2, or maybe already the new version coming with Leap 15.3, before we run into problems with an older, less or unsupported version of Postgres in our production environment. Then the new tickets consider like first workable and then new, except when something more urgent pops up, like this one. So right now we're having a problem in the automatic submission of packages to factory. Then we had some problem in OBS checks. We have an unstable test. We have problems with some systemd service alerts, which seem to be, they coincided with a network problem 3 days ago, but we are not sure yet because the machines are accessible and still we have some alert there. Then there were recent problem reports about the image downloading on O3, which we want to take a look into. And then this is also a feature which I provided in Outlook 2 and before for the OpenQA review reports, what especially Timo from QE Core team wished for is to have a mode of single line to-do list so that we have an OpenQA review report where you would just have, I can also show you the example here. So you have existing OpenQA review reports, which in Markdown look something like this. You have a section header, a date, a build, an architecture with a status, section new product bugs, existing product bugs, yada, yada, yada. And that could look something like this, that for the above, you would just have a single line to-do entry only for the cases that it need actual test review. And then, of course, this lengthy multi-page report could be much more concise, much more easily readable for test reviewers, not for release managers and not for project managers, because it doesn't provide a complete overview of the product quality, but for the test reviewers. Okay, so these are the specific things I wanted to mention from the schedule. There are some more. Now, questions, comments from you? Okay, thanks so far. I will stop the recording and then we still have some time for a casual chat.